Greetings and salutations, everyone. We are set up for today, which is the 27th of October, 2016, for our uh, live event. So let's get that started, shall we? We have our basic stuff coming up as far as all the things we need to get around and get going. We type in the chat here for those on YouTube. Welcome. It's live chat on YouTube if you want to do that. And let me see. First thing we usually do is cover some events and some highlights coming up this in the next little bit. I'm not showing, aside from everyone knowing that Halloween's coming up, and if you do that, you can do that. Go ahead and do your thing, I suppose. Let me see. As far as events for the Eden Wellness Alliance and where we're going to be, at the moment, we have a couple things coming up in November. November the 12th, we're going to have our event. It's likely going to be, again, at the library. It was last time, and we got a little bit of some fair feedback through it. So we're going to probably do that, and it's going to be on the 12th of November at, let me see, 10 to 12 is when we are going to have it booked. Again, probably at the main library in Fort Smith. And we're likely going to do a kind of fast version of it unless we get people there that are taking up a good amount of the questions and taking up a lot of the information, and then we may do a little bit more specialized stuff or break it apart if people have some more interest in that. But as it stands right now, we're just going to do the a run through of basic preparedness, emergency preparedness, the healthy way. So that way people can have that type of information for themselves. Also, on the 15th, we're doing the Egg and I. It's we'll be at the Egg and I. It is a event for those interested in essential oils. We've been able to do quite a bit of the question and answer portion, and really get in depth and talk about people's questions that they have, or information they want to know about the more nuanced things of their oils and how to use them and so on and so forth. So it's been pretty good that way. We've appreciated, and I like interacting with people, so I think that that's been a good thing. So I encourage people to come to that. Also, November 17th is the correct date for the little outreach thing we're doing at the GameStop in Fort Smith. It's the release date of the new Pokemon Sun and Moon, which my kids and I interact in that way. They like to watch Pokemon, and I played the games when I was younger, and we walk around sometimes and do the Pokemon Go thing. So I can see where Pokemon Go has helped some people with their health, and that's kind of why we're there. It's kind of a semi-fun and semi-business event where we'll have some juice and some water, and then other things will be going on there. So hopefully that will be fun also. It's going to be on the 17th. Specific time is a bit fuzzy for me right now as far as when, but I know that I'm going to be there around 8:30 or 9. Probably right about 9 would be a good time to come, because it's supposed to be, I don't know if you call it a midnight opening, but a late night release or something like that. I'm not up to what they're calling it, but we'll be there. Hopefully you'll be able to come to that or get to do some fun things along those lines. And that's everything we have coming up that I remember. Okay, we will probably do some more specific announcements next week so that we'll have our month pretty well planned out. I'm not seeing any new events on the phone, so we are good with our events. That should be everything. Let's move on to our actual main focus of this week's event. It's going to be a discussion, or kind of just a brief overview of the article how do thoughts and emotions impact health? And this one kind of focuses a lot more on, let me see, it focuses a little on the heart. I guess I need to switch that around. It focuses a bit on the heart, but it talks about all the systems really, which is good. I should switch that around on the title. So I didn't think about that beforehand. Anyway, it is, if you want to look at it, on the link is in the description below. If you are looking at our website, it will be in the post. And let me see. So it talks about, it gives a brief overview. There are other related things to it, but it talks about digestive disorders and relationships and behavior and how emotions are going to affect that. Now, I don't think this one points it out, but there is a difference between feelings and mood. A feeling is a fleeting thing, like happiness is a feeling, but a mood that would correspond with happiness would be something like contented or satisfied or things like that, or peace. So your mood is your long-term, is how you are in most situations. It's that overall, and your feeling is a momentary thing that comes and goes. It's transitory. So when you see the word emotions, it's talking about both of those. So both your short-term and long-term feelings and moods affect that. So it talks just very briefly about negativity and physical health, like chronic stress and negative attitudes being a definite problem, and how they can increase degradation of the DNA. And it specifically says stress can actually decrease our lifespan by shortening our telomeres, the end caps of our DNA strands, which play a big role in aging. And that also affects how it, or not affects, but explains how it has an effect on our DNA structure and then cancer and things like that, because cancer is a malfunctioning cell. Its DNA is not being, its genetic code is not being ran properly. It's malfunctioning. So that's a big way of a big understanding that can be brought about emotions and how that works. There's even people even study about how specific emotions elicit specific responses from the DNA and the genetic code, but that's not for today. That's not for today. We may cover that another time. So it talks about that, talks about how they have a detrimental effect on your health. Things like hypertension, cardiovascular disease, digestive disorders, infections, so on and so forth, are mentioned in that portion of the article. It goes on to talk about, under this heading, the importance of positivity, because it goes to point out that positivity actually can improve your health. Positivity can improve your health. And some people may be saying, well, I'm a pessimist. How's that going to help me? Well, it's realistic positivity is what's best for your health. Realistic positivity. So don't be afraid if you're one of those people that doesn't always think about the bright side of things, but doesn't always think about the negative side of things either. It's kind of pragmatic. You would be getting negligible effects to your DNA in most cases, mind you. But it does help us, because having that positive, or at least that mood that is positive. Remember the difference between feelings and moods. Feelings are quick, so those things come up and then come down. If your mood overall is positive, you have a much better idea and a much better strengthening of your health in that, when it comes to emotions. There's, let me see, it also goes and it talks, they did some calculations, and these are always different for different people, but it did some calculations on the amount of positivity versus the amount of negativity, and there's no real way for them to accurately get it, but in general, they said that it takes about 3 positive emotions to help balance out a negative one. This tends to be the case where you're to rewire a negative thing, you have to have 3 consistent positive things. That's not a bad ratio. It's not a bad way to grab a hold of that. But it would also behoove you to just try not to have negativity, period. We need to be realistic, but not negative, and there's a difference. I would definitely suggest and recommend this article. I wouldn't be highlighting articles if I didn't think they weren't worth looking at. But you're able to wire yourself for positivity, as it points out, if you do that kind of a ratio thing. There's no real way to keep track of that in your brain, though. You'd spend all day thinking about what you were thinking about, and that doesn't really behoove you in any way. But in general, you can kind of go, oh, I gotta focus on the positive and focus on it 3 times as much, or however you want to say that. Now, he does specifically cover 2 different emotions, and that is forgiveness and gratitude. Now, forgiveness, there are people that have gone through and looked at it and said there are basically this many steps to forgiveness, and we'll probably cover one of those that I like to use with my clients at another time. And they're different. They're not the same as the stages of grief or anything like that. They are different. This one points out that an attitude of forgiveness, let me quote this for you. The attitude of forgiveness, fully accepting that a negative circumstance has occurred and relinquishing negative feelings surrounding the event, can be learned and can lead us to experience better mental, emotional, and physical health. And there was something called they point out, the Stanford Forgiveness Project. They took 260 people, 260 adults in a 6-week course. Their numbers are 70% reported a decrease in their feelings of hurt, 13 experienced reduced anger, 27 experienced fewer physical complaints, for example, pain, gastral upset, dizziness, etc. And it goes on. It's got another little sentence or 2 about that. What I want you to take away from this, or what I would suggest taking away from this, it's not matter what I want, what I would suggest taking away from this is that 70%, that's mind-bogglingly effective when you compare it to drug trials and stuff like that, with triple-blind studies and so on. If you can get 70% forgiveness, 70% improvement in their feelings of hurt, that alone decreases the amount of cortisol that their body's producing, period. Okay, there's no way to get around that. And even a 27% fewer physical complaints, just from the forgiveness exercises that I assume they had them do in the 6-week course, just that's better than a lot of drugs get. Okay. All right, next attitude they talked about was gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. When you're thankful and grateful for things, you will have a better overall mood. And what this really is pointing out here is that it's the mood that matters, not necessarily the specific emotion that pops up, the feeling that pops up when it comes to your health. Now, I would overall, in an allopathic method, that's kind of true, but not in a holistic sense. So both are important. Both are, in fact, equally important. Your mood tends to get more attention than your actual feeling at the time, but it's the feelings that fill up if you had like a bucket of feelings, if you drop a lot into that, then you fill up that anger, you feel anger over and over and over again. Well, that's going to increase your cortisol levels as well as your adrenaline. Not all of your negative emotions are going to increase adrenaline. Some of them will, especially the ones that result in high adrenal fatigue, will then plummet you instead. So it's important to monitor both, but an overall attitude of gratitude is one that you're going to really benefit from. Let me see, they cite a Binier I'm not good with friends. Brene, with a little apostrophe E at being the end one. Brown was found has found that there is a relationship between joy and gratitude, but with a surprising twist. It's not joy that makes us grateful, but gratitude that makes us joyful. That's that right there. That transposition of those words makes all the difference, or rather, that transposition of those emotions, those moods and feelings, that understanding that you get joyful by being grateful, not you are joyful and therefore grateful. One eventually, if you have a mood of gratitude, then you will have feelings of joy. That's what they're kind of getting at. If they were to break it down, like I'm trying to break it down for you on that. So the last thing that they cover, they specifically talk about forgiveness and gratitude. The last thing that they cover is emotional resilience and how having this more positive attitude will improve your emotional resilience. That's something that cannot be underestimated, because they're talking about this emotional resilience is that mood, that long-term thing that you're wanting to really look at and harden up and solidify into your lifestyle. This positive resilience that you can make it through, you can weather all those storms that get thrown at you. That's incredibly important when it comes to reaching your genetic potential, to not degrading your DNA over time. There's no telling how long humans could live if their DNA did not degrade like it does from just everyday stresses, from mismanagement of everyday stresses. There's two types of stress that you experience every day: regular stress and then eustress. That's EUSTRESS. You can look that one up. It's a type of stress that is good for you, like exercise. But most people turn eustress, which can be good for you, into stress, regular stress that causes degradation of and overproduction in your system. So trying to have an emotional resilience, especially when you can realize that most of the stress you're going to encounter in life actually can be treated like eustress instead of regular stress, instead of detrimental stress. I really wish there was a better term I could grab a hold of. If someone knows in the comments below, you can leave it for me or put it in the chat. But either way, it's important that we realize that this attitude of gratitude and what we're trying to get here, what we're trying to pull from this and glean from this article as a main understanding, is that you're going to improve your emotional resilience, which is improving your health, your wealth, your relationships, all the things we work on. Your health specifically when it talks about those things that were mentioned before, like pain, gastrointestinal upset was mentioned in the article, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, digestive disorders, infection. Those things tend to improve. Having a emotional resilience, a positive emotional resilience, tends to improve those conditions. There's no getting around that. There's no missing that when it comes to the studies. So that emotional resilience lets you bounce back and not be unduly affected by the quote negative things that will happen in your life, like frustration, anger with a coworker, grief, all those things. Those things will eventually come. They come to everyone. But acknowledging them and working through them and having the necessary emotional resilience to pass through them without degrading yourself is imperative if you want to maximize your genetic potential. So let me see. They have a list of their references and everything like that if you want to look at the article. Let me see. The expert that they contributed with was Karen Lawson, MD, and it was reviewed by Arshel Giorgio, MD, Kate Hathaway, PhD, and Sue Towie, RN, CNS, MS, and LP. So that is the article coverage for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I am not seeing anything else on the schedule for us to go over or look at. So as as we end every time, I think I'll end with the same one I ended last time. We end with a scripture, and the scripture is Proverbs 4:17. Wisdom is the principal thing. Oh, Proverbs 4:7, excuse me. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. I am Adam L. Spain with the Eden Wellness Alliance, health and wellness the way God intended, all natural, non-invasive approaches to your health, wealth, and relationships. And have a great day. God bless and enjoy.